Good evening. We're live once again. Joining me in a second will be Mike McShane. My name's Alex Leam, chairing this panel. And if you've got any questions for Mike, then please put them into the comments and we will ask the best ones of him. In fact, it's getting late and we're getting a bit freewheeling. We might even ask a few of the weird ones as well, because they've been coming in all day. So don't forget that this edition of the online Who at Hoylake Festival is being run for a benefit of Mind. Keep your donations coming in. We've gone over the £300 mark, which is amazing. You can donate via PayPal at paypal.me/WAH2020. And we'll put that up and the QR code towards the end of the show as well. So now, please welcome my guest for this hour, Mr. Mike McShane. Hello.
Hey guys, how's it going? What's up, Alex?
Good, excellent. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm really giddy and excited about this interview, because it's not very often you get to interview somebody who's been in 3 of your all-time favorite TV shows ever. So Doctor Who, obviously, that's the reason why you're here. Whose line is it anyway, which we'll come on to. Nah.
Just have to do that. I'm sorry.
but also not talked about nearly enough. You popped up in an episode of Frasier.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, you showed Niles Crane around the Shangri-La.
I did. It was that was a trip, to be on that show, because I've been in Seinfeld as well as Frasier, to be on the sets of those shows, which are iconic looking sets. And the cast of Frasier was, without exception, really great. Kelsey didn't hang much with this. He would in the beginning. He's he's very politesse about it, and then he goes off by himself. But working with him was great. It was just a great gig. The best green room of any studio in Hollywood I've ever been in. It was like huge. Well, next to Seinfeld. Seinfeld had a cereal bar, because that's what I ate. So this long thing with different boxes of cereal on it.
So what was on offer in the Frasier green room?
It was just really soft and comfortable furniture, and all these photos of all the guest stars that they put up. And so they took my shot, in the dad in John Mahoney's chair. And then they put that up. And so you're looking at, and you recognize the big names, and you go, hey, there's buddy I did rep with, and and you can do that there, because I'm the kind of actor that irritates people like my wife, who's an academic, who's not in the business. But we'll go to see a movie, just a suspenseful moment. I go, hey, look, it's Chuck. I did Mary Wise and Wendy. She's like, really? That's what you're going to talk about now? Shut up, I just like seeing my friends working.
Yeah, well, absolutely. So say if you have a question for Mike at all about anything, Doctor Who related, of course, but anything else as well, then let us know. Rachel B commented before the show even started, which just shows the draw that you have. She puts, I'll donate some extra cash if Mike blows me a kiss.
And I did.
Which we were off air, unfortunately. So
yes.
that was a practice run.
If the kids want Airbuses from me for donations to mine, please. I've got kisses, plenty, filtered through this weird mustache, which I'm trying to cut down. I have an audition for a next year Christmas movie, and I kind of, I'm going to shave it. I go, no, I need to keep it, because, just because I'm old and fat, they go, can he play Santa? Oh, he's got a beard. Yes. Sometimes it's funny, you audition for stuff and you have to dress up and you go, but wait, isn't this like the world of imagination? When I go to an audition, do I have to look like a doctor? Do I have to carry a briefcase and play a lawyer? Can you just imagine that? I mean, unless it's a prop I need to do something with. And I'm often always stunned by, no, we need you to look like. So auditioning for Doctor Who must be great, When was the first time you saw Doctor Who?
Oh, yeah, so that's literally just come in.
Wow. I was gotten out of the Army in 76 or 77, and I was living in Stockton in the Central Valley of California, kind of a hippie. And I lived in a commune. We didn't have a TV. Mm-hmm. And 2 doors down, there was a kid. He was mildly autistic, and he was a huge fan of Doctor Who and Star Trek. And so we would watch those occasionally. And yeah, because I knew the Star Trek pretty well, that world, and so he said, "Have you ever seen Doctor Who?" And I went, "Oh, no," and we turned on and we watched The Face of Evil. So The Face of Evil, and later when I saw the first Star Trek, the V'ger thing, I went, God, these guys are like borrow. It's great the width of what they borrow, and you do. I mean. I remember Face of Evil, and then I rewatched actually a couple of days ago because I like that season. Yes, I love it. Why is it Matt Smith? It is Matt Smith. He's my favorite. But running a close second is Tom Baker, because before I ever worked in England or met the British, he to me expressed a sort of British thing. It's like they're impatient and they kind of get in your face, but they like forget it. They're like, what's put it? Why are you asking me that? And then they move on. It's like he's so peremptory with people, but everybody gives him a break because he's not really unpleasant because he's very curious and he poses. And I guess in the long run, he had a philosophy that's not akin to what I feel in improv. You go, oh, I made a mistake. I'm saying, don't make a mistake. That's intelligence. The character would espouse that some of the clumsy parts of being a human being are the best parts of you, and that the stuff that they're fighting against are the worst parts, are surety and dominion and domination and things like that. So I really appreciate he had a form of, he was humane, but in a really weird way, And then of course I came to England. Like, oh, that's British people. Okay, good. All right.
I
have no idea what you're talking about.
So was Doctor Who, the classic series, shown in America pre Tom Baker, or was that the sort of time when it started to take hold?
If it was, I didn't really know that then because we didn't have this to expand. You'd have to go to probably specialist places, like comic book shops. Then again, they were really small. So the internet has put this great high production light on weird nerd corners of the world, where in the old days it was just, some 350-pound fat guy that looked like me was a stoner going, dude, I'm an old high Gallifreyan, want some blue TARDIS, and which would be great. We have dispensaries in California. If somebody grows something called a blue TARDIS, they could sell it,
Nice. That's a strain waiting to happen if it hasn't already.
It should. It should. You can get some to. Oh God, I'm sorry. I'm not quite awake yet for some reason.
So you're in. You say you're in LA at the moment.
Yes, I'm in LA.
Yeah. What time is it where you are?
It is 11:19.
Cool.
11:19.
Have you been in America throughout all of the pandemic and lockdown, or? Yeah,
I have. I've been here in LA and stayed and inside. I have my wife has an autoimmune disease, so I have to really mind my P's and Q's about that stuff, and it's kind of rough for that. I like to get out and I get edgy.
Yeah.
I get, oh gosh, I'm trying to figure out the one doctor I worked with him. Scottish. He's a Scottish fellow.
Peter Capaldi.
No, not Peter Capaldi. He was the one that when, in the history of the show, the one when they stopped Doctor Who because they said it was too.
Sylvester McCoy. Yes.
Yeah, and sorry, just this comes from being an old stoner.
You're in good company.
But it was great because he's an old Scottish hippie, basically.
Yes.
And I did a tour of Little Shop of Horrors with him, and he was so much fun to be with. I started calling him the Good Time Lord, because he was just a delight and had all these stories and was really warm and when you're on the road with somebody and everything's good and you're being taken well care of, but you're on the road. You want to be able to get along with the people you're on the road. That was a great cast to be on the road with. And he was just a wealth of information. And then talk to him about, that time when you're in, you have, as an actor, you have no agency once you get into a role in a certain area where you've got to do what they say. It's your job. And if the writing, if they've gotten tired of it, or the budget's drop and people move away from it, or something, and the quality's moved past, and you're coming into these like prestige legacy shows, and you're going, well, why is it work? And then you get the blame, especially if they're the lead. You're like, you suck. It's like, well, maybe you don't suck. Maybe they got tired of it, and it needed to be rebranded, and it needed to come around again. And that's cool. And he was really sanguine about it. I was like, that's really, he wasn't like a bitter actor.
So how does being an improviser help with acting? Does it help?
It does help. It does help in the process. In the earlier days, sometimes you might get somebody who's like, well, he's going to change the lines. It's like, no, I don't. Look, I'm a repertory theater actor. That's how I started out. I was in a Shakespeare company with Annette Bening, and when I was younger, and I'm not going to jerk around with that, and I'm not going to jerk around with your script. If you open the door up and ask for suggestions, or if you're cool with it, and you got a rapport, then you might get some material that you add and tag onto it and build. But I'm not going to drive through and change everything. I worked with an actor who's famous, I'm nameless. He would like change. He would take all your punchlines and because he just was a stand-up, and reshape them so he was funny and you weren't. And after a while, I was like, man, I can't win here, can I? Because he was a star, he could come in and grab that. I've never been in a position to do that. But improv, I'll tell you one thing I like with improv. I improvise sometimes if I have what's called a deadline, where it's like, let's get him, and after all, you say it 100 times, it doesn't mean anything. You kind of think of a thought in your mind, the statement before, like, these guys are going to eat my wife. Let's get them. And you don't say, these guys are going to eat my wife. So when it comes out of your mouth, the thought is in it. So what you're saying is occupied with a position other than just an attitude. There's a stake or something. And then you can tone it down to it goes, no, that was too big, that kind of thing. Let's see. What was the process of getting the part in Doctor Who? Was it a round of auditions, or were you specifically asked? I was asked. I was very fortunate. I was asked. That blew me away. I was back here in the States, and my agent called up. And she said, they'd like you to do a Doctor Who, and I'm like, that's easy. But then I had to go and do some of the homework to know about the Weeping Angels.
Yes.
And how that had come from a child's game. I was told, where you turn your back to somebody and they walk towards you, and when you turn around and freeze, and you play this game and you turn back. Yeah. And I guess it was the concept of it came from it, because you're dealing with speculative fiction. It's a room full of people speculating off of their own wealth of love for all these films. The Robots of Death, which is like based on an Agatha Christie. Yeah. Because you get a murder. The murder happens, and then everybody's like blaming each other. It's like, and when you see that one, they're very Agatha Christie, all with this weird makeup, and they're in the outer space where they're going, hey, well, of course you'd say that. What do you mean? Like they're being chatting with each other on a what is like a dirt churning space pod,
So how did you? When you were doing the research for the part in Doctor Who, did you know how significant the story was going to be? Because it was Amy and Rory's last.
I know. I did not really comprehend that because I'd watched a couple, but the richness of that part of the story wasn't apparent to me. I just when they said Julius Carroll's a collector of of objects of the art and strange arcane objects. And because of my size, I'm like, do you want me to? I said, well, how about if they were like Sydney Greenstreet? They went, yeah, that's good. Because I think that's what they were thinking for the Maltese Falcon. So it's just very, the bonhomie sort of, and then deadly at the same time. What I was disappointed in my episode is, in the end, my punishment is I get stuck in a painting. They take me, the Weeping Angels like transmogrify me into a painting of a Chinese slave pottery thing. And they showed me the picture, and I was going to be in it in like a loincloth. And, I wish I would have known about the talons of Wing Chun, because I was just start improvising like, hey guys, sorry about that. I mean, we didn't know. We didn't know.
So have you played the bad guy a lot? Was this your first time?
As I've gotten older, I start doing a fine line of awful white men. I feel like I should get like a Victorian card. Hello, I'm Mike McShane, purveyor of terrible Caucasians. Which deeply is funny. I find that amusing because I'm adopted. Actually, my mother was a Ojibwe, full Ojibwe Indian from Canada, obviously, and the other half of me Scottish. Mm-hmm. But the fact, that I often play really not bad guy, but dicks, basically. Like in Wayward Pines, I played a real weird jerk. I guess it's maybe in the tone of my voice and maybe, but when I was much bigger, it was very comic. And then as I took some weight off, then I'd fall into those roles. But I like playing rogues. I did Falstaff when I was younger and did Henry IV, 1 and 2 and Merry Wives. And I love that character. And so there's always room for that kind of guy who's, as my director said, Falstaff was the perfect anarchist. He knows all law, all order, and religion that he may break all law, order, and religion. And if you apply that template generally, which American actor, male or female, would you think, wow? Well, first to pose this
question.
Provocative first statement, which American actor, because it is, as much as, fair play and stuff, the creation of Doctor Who is and you guys all know this, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself, is quintessentially British, late colonial explorer with a heart, like Lionel Jeffries was in The First Man in the Moon, and the Doctor in Quatermass in the Pit. They belong to science, they belong to a sort of rationale, but they have an extremely humane core that runs through them. And in the case of The First Man in the Moon, which I was in love with that movie when I was a kid. I loved George Pell films, and I loved the guy who played Lionel Jeffries. Adored him. He sacrifices himself, and Quatermass the Pit, he sacrifices himself. And so that has a richness that American science fiction, of course, is like, are these aliens? Let's shoot them. Shoot first, colonize later, ask questions when they act up. Which so. With the best sort of well-meaning, okay, you guys are going to hear this. I think in some ways, the softness of Keanu Reeves, because you're going to make him American, and he's familiar with time travel now anyway, as Bill and Ted, but he has a benevolence, a soft American benevolence, the door kicking open of the TARDIS and going, yo, dialects be most excellent to each other. Which might make people lose their minds. But to get a richness of, I think you'd have to get a good John Lithgow.
Yes, good shout. I always thought that Doc Brown in Back to the Future couldn't happen without Doctor Who. There's something very erratic and doctory about that character. So
yes,
I forget the guy's name. The actor
yes, and so it's a female American. You know what? I'd actually like to see Annette Bening do Doctor Who. Annette Bening is, I've known her since I was in my 20s, and she got huge in Rousseau, but she's a pragmatic, good-hearted person, but it's like low on the bullshit. She's not a real lovey that way. And she never was like that, even in the beginning. When we started out, but she's got a decency to her. If you see The American President, where she plays that with Michael Douglas, she has a real decent core and a morality that stands from let's do the decent thing, And so I think she would be a really great Doctor Who.
Thank you, Erica, for looking up. It was Christopher Lloyd, who I couldn't remember.
Lloyd, yes,
who played Doc Brown.
Where we're going, we won't need,
Yeah, I always thought Bryan Cranston as well from Breaking Bad. I thought that there's a certain there's a range of going from very, very nice and sweet to very, very sinister, which I think could suit the Doctor.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think he could, and in a way, he's very American, whereas John Lithgow has the East Coast Yankee factor, which kind of gives you that a little bit of the British tone to him. Hence his success in the UK, playing more of the ultimate Churchill and all that.
Yeah,
but that's a good one. And Cranston's a really good actor and a really nice man.
So keep your questions coming in for Mike. If you are putting a question in on Facebook, for some reason it's not showing up your name. So if you include your name in the text as well.
Robert Downey Jr. Yeah, there's wit.
Yeah,
you got wit in that.
Yeah, it's just showing up as a Facebook user. So a bit about Whose Line Is It Anyway? Which you want to come to. Yes. So how did that come about? What were you doing at the time?
I was me and Greg Proops and a guy named Brian Lohman, Reed Roman, Sandy Althouse, and Kathy Arcola were in an improv group called Fault Line. And it was, I was always very, I suffered from that Midwestern thing of I wanted to be an actor, but, the Midwestern was like, well, that's not a job for a real human being, dressing up and making fun and pretending you're people. Grow up, be a mechanic. And so I got out of the Army. I was knocking around, and I got involved in that. And so I moved to San Francisco, went to college with Proops, and he was in an improv group. And I sat in once, and it didn't hook me. It didn't hook me at all. I had a good time, but it didn't. It was just like skitting. I was playing the skits, and and at that time we realized the book Improv had come out. So the British sort of point of view that Keith Johnstone was intriguing us because it was slightly theatrical, more narrative, and so once I was knocking around doing odd jobs, doing theater here and there, and Greg called me up. He's like, "Dude, we're going to start an improv group in San Francisco out of the college, away from the college." And he goes, "You want to be in it?" I'm like, I don't know. And I was like, that's, we're not going to make any money. It's a lot of time. And I'd rather try to find a job, during the evening doing theater, theater. And then I worked in a warehouse. And he did this Proofs thing where he does this, "Hey, man, it's like being in a band, And I was like, okay, I'm in. And so we ended up finding a basement club. We were looking around for different clubs to get to that were cheap and would let us go in there and not, take everything from us if we made any money. And this guy struck a deal with us before. Literally, we pulled up in cars and we're waiting to go into the club, and he hadn't showed up yet. And an ambulance pulls up to this club, and these guys come out and they carry somebody out in a bag, kind of. And it was somebody who passed out in the club from a drug overdose, and they didn't find him until the cleaners got in the morning. And it was like in the producers, we all looked at it. That's our Hitler. That's our space. So he said, okay. And the guy gave us an okay deal. And there was already an improv group in there on like Wednesdays and Saturdays. And so we took like Friday and Sunday or something. And there was a little competition, but they were old school. They were like the Robin Williams suspenders, like, oh, the magic of improv, And we loved Robin. He was our hero in San Francisco. But how do we make ourselves different? So we were like Madness. We had suits, ties. I had hair then, and so it was primed up, and we came on, and we did sketch and improv, and so it became popular. We suddenly became very popular. We had a very talented cast of people in the group, very, very creative. And Dan Patterson, who's the producer Whose Line, was going around the major improv cities. San Francisco is one. And he picked me and Greg, and he told me I got on Whose Line this way. He asked me to go in. They said, do Star Wars. And so I did Greedo. I did a translating improv where it's like, I went, hey, nice pants, I do this in improv. You do that like running line with your hand. And he cast me because he said everybody else did the he goes, you're the only guy who did Greedo, because I just love Greedo. Guy's got a butthole for a mouth. And so that's how I got in. And Greg got in merely because, well, he's Greg, and there's no question that he has in his head.
Absolutely. I mean, in Britain in the 80s, how alien a concept was improv Was it really, really new then, or had it sort of like set in beforehand?
Well, not to Americans, but to the British.
No.
What had happened is you had Jim Sweeney and Steve Steen. They were the Wee Wees. They came out of they played at the Donmar, and then the Comedy Store Players started. There was people before Sweeney and Steen, but when Michael Myers lived in London, the Canadian Michael Myers, from SNL and all that. And he met Neil Malarkey, and they were kind of feeling the improv vibe. And like I said, the Keith Johnstone book came out. It kind of was like that mix, It's like television, computers, improv. Things happen across the spectrum in 4 or 5 different places, with little things, and then it comes together, So why they cast, because they were moving from radio to television with it, and what they felt then, which was maybe a little true then, it's not true at all now, is that American improvisers had a better grip on physicalizing an improv, whereas the British from the neck up were unbeatable. Wit, all the wordplay, all of that they had, but they, you get on stage, you were like Clive Anderson, that thing. And so as we work, which that's a generalization too. They played. So we went on TV. They wanted to have the best shot, right? So they brought some of us in, and me and Greg and Colin and Ryan, we all hit with the audience, And there it is. I worked. 88, 89. I would travel over, and then 90 I moved because of I was like, man, this is once a lifetime to live in England for a while. Yeah, let's do it.
Couple of Who's Line related questions have popped in. Sean Bailey always wanted to know why you and Steve Frost never did an episode of Who's Line together.
Our eyebrows clashed. That was it. We'd get together close, and they would reach to each other and link, and then you'd have to get this emollient to move them apart. Now, I improvised with Steve a lot of time. I improvised with Steve Frost All-Stars. Just timing, probably because they had one big American, and they had Steve Frosty, who's like one giant British, monster. And they said, let's, it'll be like matter and antimatter. The TV will go blank. But Frosty's great. I remember I saw Steve Frost and Andy Smart at the Comedy Store one time do a complete gibberish scene in Cockney where they just go, and they just did like 3 or 4 minutes. I was losing its mind. And I'm thinking, this could be a music hall in 1885, because they were all posturing and doing and I was just like, this is joyous. Steve is full of joy on stage. He's like a big drunken stoner bored. Resistance is futile. He's just, you get sucked into his world, and it's great.
Mark Prescott on Facebook was asking, how do you learn to do improv songs? Which is something that's intrigued me as well, because sort of the music games, I'm thinking, how the hell?
Okay. I've had a knack for that. I have a bit of a rhyming knack since I was a kid. I just love sing-song and rhyming, and I'm an only kid, so I would walk around the house making up songs about my dog or my food, and I'm adopted, so my parents were like, maybe this is a phase from his tribe. We'll grow out of it. And I never did. And I just kind of liked it, And then I found that improv, you could play with that. And then I met Richard Vraunch. I met Dr. Richard Vraunch. Richard, his skill and his warmth and his wit, and the one rule is I'll follow him in the beginning and find that bit. There's an American musical improviser named J. Raoul Brody from San Francisco. And he was like Richard, his superb mind of music, and a very free mind of music. And with him, I remember having great moments and not knowing exactly how I had them, but gradually realizing I'll follow him and then he'll follow me. And so the back and forth. And once you get that agreement, like an improv agreement, your partner's making you look great. Basically, he makes me look good. And Josie, I would not have success on Who's Line with the songs if it was not for Josie Lawrence and Dr. Richard Vraunch. That's just it. And I call him Dr. Richard Vraunch because I don't know if anybody knows this. Richard was the youngest lecturing don in, I think, silicon or physics at Cambridge when we were doing Whose Line.
Wow, really?
The dude is.
I did not know that.
There's nobody like him, and he's a sweet, complicated man, with sweet being the first thing, and a genius guy. And so, yeah, honestly, he gets tired of me saying I owe my success to him, but it's the freaking truth. You got to, it is a collaborative game. And that's one of the appeals of being an actor to me. I love getting with a crew of people, and you find something and you don't knock each other out of the way. You both run together. A couple of years ago in LA, there's a lot of art in LA on the street, i.e. garbage. And I've seen two examples of the best mattress art, where somebody took the mattress from a flat that somebody gotten rid of and took a spray can of paint and like drew something on it. And one was really cynical. And it was like an outline of a skyline of LA. And then somebody wrote, LA is my ashtray. And I went, ooh, he's angry. And then one day this one hit me because I was feeling really self-conscious about being an actor and being older and like, oh, what am I going to go with this, And why am I doing this kind of crap? And their guide sprayed on a mattress. If you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with the group. And I'm like, yeah, bro, that's good. I'll take that. And so that mattress is my guru.
That's
a stained mattress is my guru.
I say that was on a mattress.
Yeah.
We're way behind with graffiti in the UK. It seems like it's that should
Oh
be the next trend.
no. What is it? I got one that I saw in Camden. What is it? To the gallows with the Vatican shirt lifters. What the hell is that?
I don't know what it is, but I love it. That's fantastic. Daniel Lythe on YouTube, again, seems to have been quite terrified by the thought of the hoedown. But it says, on Whose Line, what was your favourite/least favourite game?
My favorite game is Alphabet Scene. And I did one with Tony. I had Tony Slatter. I had like the time of my life doing, because we were just getting to know each other. And he's just like a little kid, like, yeah. Wrapped in like this handsome monster of a guy. So I love that. And it just like everybody else, we all hate hoedown. We just.
What is about the hoedown that
and we have to like it's just and I think we also just took on a group hate after Colin decried it and Greg decried it and then Ryan were all like, why are we doing this, and Dan Patterson's like, because it's funny. It's like, to you, disembodied douchebag in the booth, it is. But to all the rest of us, it's like, and this is one where you get a payback from the audience where they're, oh my, this is great. They're out there and you're playing with them. And the hoedown was always one where people are like, it's towards the end of the show, the evening, they're tired and they're like, yeah. And so you're doing, you're going, we're not getting anything back anymore,
So we were so before we came on air, we were talking a little bit about Whose Line, and you said that's where you found out one of your favourite British expressions, slaphead, thanks to Clive Anderson. Are there any other British expressions that are stuck in your mind?
Well, you do a quick catch up on British culture. You find out that Twiglets is funny, that Leamington Spa is funny, that those kind of things. What you say, hello, I'm Charles from Leamington Spa, gets a laugh, and you go, why is that funny? Then you look it up, and it's a suburb, and you get the idea that it's a suburban values. That your culture has within its language set and dialects ways to figure people on. Alan Bennett obviously has gone on ad infinitum about this concept. And so, you kind of go, oh, man, we're big and spread out with large pieces of land where we didn't have anything in the way. But with all the bogs and fens and hills and dales of your country, people could grow up a kilometer for each other and never see each other in some situations. There are the language set and the mores and everything. The Moray eels, which lived in the village. The Moors would come out, would develop. And then I got help from Paul Merton. But Paul, because I did like British comedy, and I had this weird obtuse I grew up in Kansas, and there was a record store that was owned by Ed Asner's brother, who was an old stoner. And so, but they had these weird, they had Hawkwind, and they had this guy who was he sang these weird songs. His name was Ivor Cutler. And believe it or not, in the 70s, there was a group of us in Kansas, a couple of stoners, who would listen to Ivor Cutler and like laugh. And a group called Hatfield in the North. So this really weird prog stuff, King Crimson. So I had an affinity for certain things. So for TV, I mean, first time I ever saw, I saw Marty Feldman when I was a kid, before Python. But the opening credits for Marty Feldman's Comedy Machine were done by Terry Gilliam. And so the cutout, that stuff was, and then his attitude, and Marty Feldman was a genius that way. And the sort of like silent film comedy, but I remember being a kid watching how kings created their kingdoms, and they did it like a natural history. And so there was a woman sitting dressed as a lady with a big medieval hat on, sitting like a bird, and Marty Feldman comes out of the crown, like tipped over his eye, a big cloak, walking around like a bird. He sees her. And I was just like, what the hell is this? It was like, I've never seen anything like that. And so on top of that, like I said, Paul said, oh, well, you don't know about Tony Hancock. You don't know about this. And it wasn't like, he's not, that's great. Again, Paul's like, he's a genius mind, but very inclusive soul. Oh, you don't know this. And he gets excited, and he wants to show you Little Titch, and he wants to show you Music Hall, and, and he wants to give this to you. And the guy is full of gifts. That reserve he has, which he uses, is actually, he hides a great, sweet kid, And so all you got to do is like just say, who are the Huggets? And he goes, oh, the Huggets. And he'll go off on, this early movie series with actors, because I was a big fan of The Christmas Carol with Alistair Sims when I was a child. Mm-hmm. And then the people who played the Huggets are in that as different characters. So you connect all these things, and you realize how small and brilliant, post-war film was and pre-war film was in England. And then further on down the line with Paul, he did his history of silent film, which made a case for America only developed the silent film in Hollywood because of the war, that the materials and resources and attention in Europe was taken up. And that's real. A lot of American silent film is turned, oh, no. I go, dude, come on. If you read, Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond, a lot of history is developed on, like, if attention goes over here one way, then something else happens here. It's just, it's a balance. So yeah, I got a lot of.
So a question just come in from Mark P. Who's your favorite actor, and did you ever get to work with them?
You mean generally?
Yeah, generally. And anyone that you're a fan of that you got to work with?
I've worked with Bryan Cranston, but that was on a sitcom.
Oh, what sitcom?
It was a sitcom I did called Brotherly Love with Joey Lawrence and his two brothers. And he was a guest star. This was before Malcolm in the Middle and everything. So he was a guest actor. And we just got along really well. And then when I did Malcolm in the Middle, he came up to me, he goes, because what was it? I played this guy, basically a Christopher Lloyd character. My character's name is Lloyd. And he's a pit stop mechanic in this garage, the loyal friend of the guy who had the garage who died, and now he works for the guy's son. And he like a pit stop crew, and during an accident, a tire flew out and hit him in the head. And so he's kind of not all there, And so I had this sort of like, he even did a Christopher Lloyd voice, kind of whack. And I had this exchange of like, where I think I like something and it's actually a food. It's like a philosophical statement. I can't remember the punchline is like actually, oh no, it's a grocery cereal. It's a cereal, and he loved that line, and he said it back to me. You remembered that? And yeah, he's so, oh, I'd love to get in. And then watching Breaking Bad, I was like, dude, if you're an older character actor guy, because that, without any disrespect to him, I don't think he would take it. Being a character actor is great. You get more width. And you don't have to carry the movie, but in the case when you're a character actor and you have to carry the movie, then a guy like Bryan Cranston is, he's a gift. He's a gift, and he's got a nice, he's just, So he's got that dynamic, and so if you get a good script with a guy like him, it's like, yeah, And I got to work with Gielgud. I got to work with a lot of great actors.
Fantastic.
With Alan, on Robin Hood. So, I'm kind of blessed. I mean, I think if I any actor I'd really like to work with right now, actually, Robert Pattinson.
Right. What's appealing about Robert Pattinson to you?
Because he's such a wonderful film actor, and he's got this thing concentrates on so much of this on the screen and changes it, and he's got a nice, open, hollow stillness. And for me, because I'm quite Baroque, is to meet somebody and see if a script can meet the Baroque in that, or whether you as in a co-scene can find that bridge where your two energies meet. And so he would be a challenge. But I've read what he's talking about, just like his head about being an actor, And Gary Oldman. I like Gary Oldman.
Final question. Got time for one more viewer question before we go wrap it up. From Stephen Bailey. Says, do you have any memories from the set of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves?
Many. First day on the set, my first big role in a film. I'm a theater actor primarily, an improviser. So I'm on the set going, come on, yeah, all right, man, I'm into it. And by 3 p.m., I was like, I was out of it. I was getting here at 5 a.m. And Morgan Freeman and Alan saw that. They went, come here. And Morgan Freeman goes, when you go back home tonight, get a book that has nothing to do with this show. Okay? Sit, and just read the book. He goes, because I was like, but he goes, you've got the job. You've got the job. And you can even do it badly and they won't fire you because I've already spent the money. Because you'd have to be really terrible for them to fire you. Because that's the great thing about film. You're already too far in on the first day. They can't get rid of you. I was like, what? It's a great attitude about it. And also that him and Alan both, everybody was great, but those guys kind of took care of me. I'd go in the makeup trailer and Alan would be sitting going, so Michael, what part of England are you from today? Because my dialect, I'm like, all right, you know what? Fuck you. He was like, just giving me shit. And during one scene with like the chase where we're like running through the warren of the doors. He was the director. He goes, can we do these he opens the door and there's nobody there. He opens, and then I go and I open the door, there's nobody there. And then we open it at once and we're both there. We go, ah! And then they close it. And the Kevin Reynolds goes, no. And he goes, oh, come on. Because he just wants to be stupid. He's just, man, plays these great villains and just like goes, oh, And then they said, we had this scene between you and Azim, and it's not really working. You're an improviser. Will you guys improvise a scene? I'm like, and he goes, well, that'd be a great idea. Yes, let's improvise a scene. And we did. We improvised a scene, and he was really great. He was a lot of fun. Last one. My wife, who is not an actor, when the Carcassonne scene is stormed, the castle stormed, we used the set at Shepperton, and then we went to France for 3 days to shoot exteriors at Carcassonne in the south of France. My wife came with me, and during a point, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio had a mid-long shot, but she'd been wrapped. She's done. She's back in L.A. So they said, no problem. We're going to get a stunt woman to do it. And they brought the stunt woman in, who looked like Ronnie Corbin. And they're like, no, that does not look like Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. And at that time, my wife was the same shape and size as Mary Elizabeth. And Alan goes, well, why doesn't she play Maid Mary? It'd be fun. And so they dolled my wife up in the wig and the outfit. Fantastic. And she got to do scenes. And she had to be like, the sheriff of Nottingham's dragging Maid Mary in. And they dubbed Mary Elizabeth going, Robin, help. And it cuts to a shot of that happening and cuts back to the reaction. And she was like laid in and really, Karen's really strong. And the cut, he goes, don't fight me so much. So she was like, oh, okay. And then she pulled her back out because she was so nervous, I think. So they spent the next 2 days in the hotel room watching French Jeopardy, which she had a lot of fun. And then Alan took us out and got us really drunk. And then we were trapped in the city, in medieval city, with tiny, we couldn't go to the video lot, because it was a little too far away. And it was really cold, bristling up there. And Morgan Freeman was sitting next to Karen, and they were just doing jokes and stuff. And he was just, those two guys were so bloody gracious to me and to Karen. So, those are some of my favorite memories. And okay, last one.
Fantastic.
You got one more?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. We get done shooting. I'm wrapped. He's like, Mike McShane. Everybody stand up. Thank you, guys. Thank you. And you go back. He goes, we can't get you to the trailer. So you mind walking? So I'm in my fire truck here. So I'm walking around this medieval city. And also this guy who lives in Carcassonne, this French guy comes and goes, Monsieur, we have a TV film. I go, yes, I play Friar Tuck. He goes, oh, Père Tuc, would you like a brandy? And I'm like, well, I am playing Friar Tuck. So he goes into his little, let's get this thing where he pours me a brandy. And he goes, oh, you must meet my friend Stefan. And so he takes me a thing. And Stefan goes a little bar. And he goes, have a brandy. So I'm 3 brandies in. And then Stefan goes, would you like some hashish? And I'm like, what? And so now I'm drunk and I'm stoned. And the back of my mind going, I'm wrapped, I'm done. But in film, you never know. I'll say this thing like, hey, Mike, we need you for, and they wrote a speech. And you're like, all the time, we're going, please, God, no, please don't call me. I'll die. It's like, I don't work on high. And I was like, oh my God. So now I'm paranoid and slightly drunk. And I was like, okay, nobody's talking. And then they said, would you show you around? Like, yeah. And these guys walked in, they grew up there. And they would talk, and they go, we would play as cowboys and Indians. We played Crusaders and Moors on the parapets with these little wooden swords. And I'm like, this is beautiful. I mean, this is
fantastic.
It gives me, I've been so lucky to get into corners. And so those are my fondest memories.
Fantastic. Well, this has gone far too quickly. We've unfortunately reached the end of the time.
Well, this has gone on far too long. Please.
Thank you so much for joining us. Mike will be back with us slightly later on tonight. He's our special guest on Improv Provocateur at 9 p.m. I've got to roll credits and then leg it because my next show is straight next after this. So
please donate, guys. Please.
Yes, donate. That is the link right there at the bottom. The QR code is in the credits. Up next, awkward question time with me and special guest Robin Ince, Toby Haydock. Mike, man. I shall see you later for Improv Provocateur. Thanks again. Thanks for joining us. Take care. Bye-bye.